Good morning, everybody. It's Mary Lynn Harris. I'm creating an impactful talk show. I call it my talking newsletter. So my guest this morning is we're doing a really early show just to accommodate the time difference. Nadine is where she lives in Switzerland, and where I live in California. So anyway, welcome, Nadine. I'm so glad that we're able to connect and do the show today. So tell us
Okay.
a little bit about yourself and yeah, and just kind of how'd you get started? So I'm going to let you introduce yourself.
Well, first, I love that your company, Hard at Work, and on this podcast, you focus on kindness
Mm-hmm.
as a driver, perhaps even the key driver for having the best impact, starting
Mm-hmm.
with kindness to yourself, building out to kindness to others, and extending further to kindness to the community and the larger society.
Mm-hmm.
And from a very young age, I felt an inner call to show kindness to others.
Mm.
It was only later in life that I also learned to be kind to myself.
Right.
And I
A hard
realized
one.
that if I wasn't, that whatever I was giving was not coming from a place of wholeness.
Mm.
And I began to explore my inner self, not at the expense of engaging in the world, but to guide my social justice work to mitigate against the enormous suffering in the world by helping others,
Mm-hmm.
i.e., kindness.
Right. Right. Yeah, and
And
when you're saying about kindness to yourself, I think that's the hardest one.
yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And you talk a lot about change agents. And my entire life I've been a change agent.
Mm-hmm.
And even as a child, I questioned narrowness and selfishness.
Mm-hmm.
When I was in Hebrew school, when I was about 7 years old, my teacher was giving a lesson on the Jewish high holy days.
Mm.
After she explained that God judged everyone on Yom Kippur, I asked, but what about the Gentiles? They don't know that they're supposed to be seeking forgiveness during this
Yeah.
holiday. At that time in my
Yeah.
life, all I knew was Jew and Gentile.
Right.
Later in life, I studied world religions um, but and then her response to me, which was, "Oh, don't worry about that. We're the chosen person people." I found that so profoundly disturbing that my
Right.
innocent childhood prayer was, God, I'm praying for all the Gentiles in the world
Right.
because I don't know what you want of them. The Jewish families are okay, they know. And, as I say, since I've studied all world religions, I believe what they share at their core is that if you love God, you serve humanity, and
Mm-hmm.
all the rest is commentary,
Right.
i.e., kindness.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's kindness is the vehicle in which we can use to help others and also just to serve humanity in that kind of way. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit about Nadine, about your business, your Because Global. I'm very curious to what you're doing with that.
Okay, so because it's about helping people connect to their core purpose,
Mm-hmm.
connect to each other within entities, creating the synergy that's often lost in beelines or regional. I mean, even when people are sitting side by side in cubicles, sometimes
Right.
they don't. And then to connect with external stakeholders, they're friendly stakeholders like vendors and uh,
Mm-hmm.
suppliers and clients, but even with their adversarial um, stakeholders, which I describe in my TEDx, which is called
Right.
Adversaries to Allies. Um, and and this is very formational in my life. I grew up in the 1950s,
Mm-hmm.
very deeply moved by the American Civil Rights Movement, Dr. Martin Luther King's 1963
Mm-hmm.
I Have a Dream speech was a really pivotal moment in my life.
Mm-hmm.
In 1964, I was fortunate to have two extraordinary mentors. I worked on Shirley Chisholm's campaign for the New York State Assembly.
Mm-hmm.
She went on to become the first Black and the first female candidate for US president in 1972. And at the same time, I volunteered with Bella Abzug at Women's Strike for Peace. And they both taught me that racism, sexism, militarism, classism, environmental degradation, all forms of separation and injustice
Right.
are interrelated, and that we must work on those issues in tandem. What today we call intersectional organizing.
Right.
And I had an even earlier role model in my grandmother, who taught me that when I went to the bakery,
Mm-hmm.
I should ask for the price of today's bread and yesterday's bread.
Mm-hmm.
And then I should buy yesterday's bread and put whatever pennies I saved into a jar that we kept on the top of our refrigerator,
Mm-hmm.
give money to people who were less fortunate than we were. And
Wow.
we lived quite modestly.
Mm-hmm.
So I learned young that philanthropy, another form of kindness, is
Right.
not something you wait to do until you achieve wealth. You give regardless of your circumstances.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of interesting, because, entrepreneurship, if
Yeah,
you will, there's so much force, you know, get money first and then give others. And
exactly.
I don't know how you can do that only and not give in between,
Absolutely.
you know,
I think
because
that's true for entrepreneurs and actually for everybody, whatever type of endeavor they're in.
yeah, yeah, they have to be able to give all the time, whether you're mentoring somebody or whether you're giving money, like you've saved money to give, or you're just learning to give not only to yourself, but maybe to causes that are
Yeah,
important to you, that you value. So
yeah.
I'm kind of opposed to the people that say, make your millions now and then give later.
Right. Well, it's interesting because about a decade ago, when I was like at retirement age, um, I'd have many people say things to me like, oh, in the 1960s, I was really active. And then I became, fill in the blank, a
Yeah.
hedge fund manager, a private equity investor. And, and now I really want to do something meaningful again.
Yeah.
And, and whenever I hear that, I would think, you know, I'm really glad I stuck with meaningful all the way through. And they may be financially richer than I am,
Yeah.
but I've had and I have
Yeah.
an absolutely far richer life filled with purpose.
Right.
I recently ran a session for PricewaterhouseCoopers Switzerland executives called Lead with Purpose, how to
Hmm.
inspire and motivate your teams.
Hmm.
And I also gave a keynote address at an IMD Business School Global Alumni event,
Right.
a call for leadership, responsibility, action, and hope, with
Right.
many of the insights. And I see that more and more companies, academic institutions, and other
Hmm.
entities are beginning to focus on purposeful leadership that
Right.
inspires people to be their best selves and to help create a culture of positivity.
Hmm. Yeah, because if you're not, every individual person, I believe, needs their own purpose, their own strategy, their and then become more whole in that organization
Absolutely.
in that organization. I guess so
Ab-
for me, just from starting kindness in business is just that I learned over the time that I was doing it, until we're kind to ourselves, like you were saying earlier, we're giving for to get something back, not giving just to give,
Yeah.
right?
And there's a really big difference between the two.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what's your next project, Nadine? I know you have a book coming out or you're writing one.
Well, I'm writing a book. It's called
Mm-hmm.
The Power of Connectedness.
Mm-hmm.
Everything we've been talking about. It has a foreword by the late Nobel Peace Laureate Desmond Tutu with permission from his family to use it posthumously.
Mm-hmm.
And in it, I explore themes of purpose, primarily through the lens of our relationships with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I include the lessons I learned at my grandmother's knees,
Right.
to insights I gained from working with world-renowned leaders like Nelson
Hmm.
Mandela, who was the ultimate connector.
Right.
After 27 years of imprisonment by the apartheid regime, he emerged committed to work with the very people who had brutalized him and all Black South Africans.
Hmm.
And I call this engagement leadership.
Right.
I've actually done quite a bit of work and research. I created a proprietary engagement leadership, strategic relational
Yeah.
engagement, particularly when I was an executive in residence at IMD Business School, the first female to hold that
Hmm.
position, the first non-European to hold that position, distilling down lessons on how having deeper, more profound relationships with people
Right.
um, makes everything more possible.
Right.
And we all have reasons why we're afraid of relationships. I mean, throughout all of human history, there have been voices of light, as I call them, people
Yeah.
who care about others, welcome the stranger, feed the hungry, act with compassion. But simultaneously, there's always been voices of dark, people who fearmonger, fomenting territorial us versus them hatred, at
Right.
the least demeaning the other, and at the worst destroying them.
Hmm.
And I believe to be a counterforce to those who promulgate darkness and otherness.
Hmm.
It's vital for me to be a voice of light
Right.
and to amplify the voice of anyone who's kind to others, like yourself.
Hmm.
And not only on a broader societal scale, as you mentioned,
Hmm.
but in all our encounters, whether they be familial, in our workplace, or
Hmm.
anywhere else. I write, I teach, I speak about how anyone can be a force for good in whatever sphere they operate. For example, if someone has a boss, if you have a boss who doesn't value the talents and skills and contributions of his or her team members, you can set an example by recognizing, validating, and supporting them.
Hmm.
Because I believe that constructive change can come from the top down
Hmm.
or from the bottom up.
Right.
So whatever you do at any level, you
Yeah.
can contribute to making things better for others. Again, kindness.
Right. Right. Exactly. Yeah. I remember an employee group really wanted to have me come in, and I said, well, you guys could start right where you are and build that up, right? Oh, no, no, we need our head chief, because I also believe like fish rot from head down, right? So the
Yeah,
same in an organization. But it was
yeah.
funny because years later, the company came to me and said, we want to buy your program, but we're not implementing it. We want, we want, we want to just tell people we have a program, but we're not going to use it. And I thought, what's the point of that? So that was always a big debate. Take the money and
Yeah.
run, Marilyn, or just say no. And I said, I can't take the money. I says, you have to implement it to be successful. Like you say, having an engaging and purposeful company and employees or leaders,
Absolutely.
right?
And that's the reason why I also do a lot of work with Global Citizen Circle, having been a senior advisor to it for 40 of its 50 years.
Yeah.
Since 1974, Global Citizen Circle has been bringing together people from diverse sectors, nationalities, ages, races, socioeconomic
Yeah.
backgrounds, etc., to have respectful dialogue on pressing world issues,
Hmm.
um, with a goal to find and implement sustainable solutions. And
Right.
and by the way, during this 50th anniversary year, GCC continues with a wonderful lineup of free programs to advance this objective. And folks can sign up for free at globalcitizencircle.org to
Mm,
join live streams from anywhere in the world. And I love when youth leaders interact with elders globally and learn from each other's acts of compassion.
yeah. No,
That
absolutely.
nourishes me.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about your charitable endeavors. Yeah, I know you mentioned the project, the World Project.
Yes, well, I serve on a lot of boards.
Hmm.
I'm on the advisory board of the Geneva Center for Business and Human Rights. I'm on the advisory board of the Switzerland chapter of the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights, which I've been involved with
Right.
since it was founded, right after RFK's assassination. I do a lot of mentoring. I mean, even though teaching and coaching are part of my business model, I'm
Right.
also like, if there's a young person, I have a real soft spot for young people,
Right.
especially young people who have a passion and a purpose. And so I'll give my time to just spend time with them, talk with them, help them think through. And it's interesting because, you know, as I mentor and coach, I'm often asked, what should I do?
Right.
You know, like leave my job, divorce my spouse, become an entrepreneur. And I never tell people specifically what action is best,
Right.
but I always tell them to follow their heart, knowing that if they do, they'll be happier.
Right.
And that happiness is a prerequisite for a life of meaning, purpose, and kindness. And we each individually and our world as a whole desperately need this. And I love what Desmond Tutu said. Said, do your little bits of goodness wherever you are.
Right.
It's all those little bits of goodness put together that overwhelm the world.
Wow. That's very impactful and I could see how that would be his legacy as he left this world in your
Yeah,
care and for you to carry on that message.
absolutely.
Yeah. Is there anything you really would like everybody to know more about you and your work or what you want people to do?
Well, I'd say that during my life, while I took many twists and turns, many of which were less positive than others, um, I believe it's the sum total of all these experiences, even the most painful ones, that make me the multifaceted, compassionate person that I am. So I'm grateful for my life lessons, even those that I might have avoided had I made wiser time, because often my darkest experiences
Right.
taught me that trying to love myself and trying to love others is the most important effort in my life.
Absolutely.
And you know, at one point when you and I had a separate conversation, you asked me if there was anything I might have asked myself when I, first got started. And I wished I'd asked myself, what will make me feel nourished and fulfilled? Because as I said earlier, it took a while to put myself into my kindness equation.
Right.
There's a reason why airline stewardesses say, put your own oxygen mask on before you try to help anybody else.
Right.
The lesson that I have to constantly remind myself of repeatedly, because I've learned that if I'm pushing forward on an empty tank, I'm not bringing my best self forward.
Right.
And I also know that when I show up grounded in a healthy state of fully integrating and owning all the parts of myself, the good, the bad, and the ugly,
Yeah.
I increase the likelihood of giving others the opportunity of
Right.
showing up in that same embodied whole self. And I offer an invitation for them to be authentically present with their full selves. And I believe that owning even our shadow sides, those that we may not be the proudest of,
Right.
is key to healing ourselves, which is key to healing others.
Right. Right. It's also giving space for somebody else to heal themselves when we
Exactly.
give our space to heal ourselves. Right. Yeah. Totally. Totally. So I'm so glad we have this conversation. I wish we could keep going on. So tell us a little bit about your book, or if you want to talk about it now, or are you still writing it, I think, aren't you?
I'm still writing it.
Yeah.
It turned out that it's taking me longer than I anticipated.
Yeah.
Because when I began, I really thought that I was going to just write a how-to book,
Yeah.
based on all these lessons that I had learned. Like, okay, here's why it's important to have deep relationships. Here are the challenges. Here's, what gets in between.
Mm-hmm.
Here's what you can do to overcome those challenges. And then as I began to write, I thought, okay, everything that I've just said about bringing your whole self
Mm-hmm.
into anything, that I had to walk the talk. I've been a firm believer in walking the talk
Yeah.
my whole,
Yeah.
and that if I was going to walk the talk, then I had to make myself more vulnerable
Mm-hmm.
and share more about my messy life.
Right.
And it wasn't just I wanted to be a connector when I was young. I've been a connector all my life. Here's how I've connected. That
Yeah.
would have been, it might have been a good book, but it's not the book I want to put out in the world. I want a book that's more honest
Mm-hmm.
and that allows people to recognize through my own flaws, my own foibles, that, well, not only do you not have to be perfect, there is no such thing as
Right.
perfection,
Right.
but that no matter how wounded you are, no matter how broken you are, no matter how confused you are, no matter what, um, you do have the possibility to, you know, work through that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to use the word stuff rather than the other word that starts with an S. And in doing so is really where the magic happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that in my coaching relationships, it's when I call it a sacred space when
Right.
I'm really being honest and vulnerable, and which kind of is an invitational opening for the other person to be honest and vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And so many times people say things to me like, I never told anybody that. I never told my spouse. I never told my sister. I never told my best friend. I can't believe that 10 minutes into our conversation, this is coming out of me. But I know the reason it's coming out of them is because of the way that I'm showing up sensitive to who they truly are
Mm-hmm.
and giving them permission
Mm-hmm.
to um, be vulnerable. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason why Brene Brown's TEDx on vulnerability has like over 57 million viewers.
Mm-hmm.
It's something that all of us have. You can't avoid it, and in fact, trying to hide from it weakens you.
Mm.
There's this strange belief out there that you have to like put forward a
Yeah.
strong,
Yeah.
confident, oh, stuff. But in fact, you're your strongest when you're willing to let people see your weaknesses. I have
Right.
found.
Or the weakness to call for help and say, I need help.
Absolutely. And by the way, I'm glad you bring that up because that's a lesson that I'm still teaching myself.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
still hard for me to ask for help, even though I'm surrounded
Right.
by family and friends who love me and would go out of their way to do anything for me. I forget that, we
Mm-hmm.
can all get trapped into our own kind of cocoons of fear or whatever it is
Yeah.
that stops us.
The embarrassment of
The
asking for
embarrassment, yeah,
help.
the embarrassment. Like I should know how to do this. No, I don't know how to do everything.
Right.
In fact, just recently, I saw something that a granddaughter of mine posted on Instagram, and I commented, and I just my comment was, I wish that I was as wise as you are now when I was your age.
I'm sure she was very proud and felt very encouraged by you in that moment. Just that you were just able to say, hey, keep going, kid. You're doing a great
Yeah,
job. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. That's so cool. Yeah, I know. It's just like vulnerability. Some days I can't even say the word. So you know that I'm in trouble.
Well,
Yeah.
to be honest, we're all like that. We
Hmm.
all have our ups and downs. As I said earlier, it's never a linear line of progress. Our
Right.
lives are dips and valleys and peaks and 5 steps forward and 10 steps back. And we
Yeah.
all have our moments where something hooks us, you know, and brings us into a less developed state than we might, have the capacity to be now.
Yeah.
And that's human. And being able to accept that and honor that
Mm,
and not feel defeated by that is a very important lesson for us all to just, as I say, iteratively remind ourselves, because it's not like you learn a lesson once and, oh, now I've got that one.
yeah.
You learn it, you forget it. You
Yeah.
learn it. In psychology, there's even a term called working through, which is
Okay.
exactly that you learn the same message over and over and over until it gets more deeply and deeply embedded in you, and
Mm,
you understand it on a broader consciousness in a deeper way, and you integrate it in not just on a cognitive level, but like in your viscera, you
right.
know.
Yeah. I think it's interesting how people go through their life, like you're saying, some of us keep going, bzz, and then there's other times that we have to stop and take a look. Okay, what am I doing now? What's not working? Why is it not working? And investigate that, and then and
Absolutely.
then move on or move forward, as you would
Right.
say, move through.
Right.
Yeah.
Investigation, self-investigation with a focus on compassion and empathy. I really share your goal to make a meaningful difference in people's lives and to contribute to a more compassionate world
Right.
through that. When you ask me about my work, I could list off for you,
Mm,
and there's a list, and it's all true.
yeah.
I'm very proud of it.
Right.
Um, I held a senior undersecretary general level position at the United Nations. I worked at a very senior level in state and federal government. I'm the CEO of a company. I
Right.
was the first female executive in residence at the world's leading executive education business school. I could go on and on, and it's all true, and I'm
Right.
very proud of it. But to be honest, I'm prouder of being willing, able to say, I'm as messed up as the rest of everybody, and I do great things, I do stupid things. Sometimes I'm really, yeah, emotionally smart, other times I'm really emotionally closed.
Right.
It, it, I think it's important for people to know that successful entrepreneurs, successful business people like myself
Yeah.
are not just, like statues to
Yeah.
be idolized, and,
Yeah.
but that we're human. And in fact, I find that the difference between highly competent um, executives and great leaders, and there's a big difference,
Yeah.
is the degree of self-awareness,
Mm.
degree to which that person is willing to honestly look at themselves
Mm-hmm.
and and make themselves open to others seeing their whole self. That the self-awareness is such an important distinguisher between tremendous competency or great leadership.
Right. Yeah. As you're just saying that, I'm thinking, uh, the awareness of self. Until we're aware of ourselves, once again, being kinder to ourselves, it's really hard for other people want to even work with you because
Yeah,
they don't know what they're going to get.
exactly.
But,
Exactly.
it also gives other people permission to do so as well. So
Exactly.
if we live our whole lives whole, that means the good has to come with the bad. or the
Yeah,
uncomfortable, I will say, not necessarily bad, but the
right,
uncomfortableness of parts of our life that we don't want to share or are embarrassed to share or don't want to do. But that's just part of life. This is like, what do we learn from that and move on?
right. And that's why it's taking me longer to write the book than I thought it would,
Yeah,
because I'm trying really hard to be honest
yeah,
and put down on paper the whole truth, the unvarnished truth.
right,
Again, as I've been reminded many times, it's ultimately my decision how much of it I publish.
right.
Unless I put it down on paper, it will hang over me like a shadow, like I'm hiding. I'm just letting you see the persona, Nadine, that the
Yeah.
world has seen, this accomplished woman whose wall is full of trophies and pictures with people. And and that's a part of Nadine. That's a real part,
Right,
but it's just a part.
right.
There's so many parts. We're all so multifaceted,
Yeah.
and it's in the embracing of the wholeness that I think wonderful, as I say, magic, sacred things can happen, and that's my goal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't just want to put out another leadership book. I mean, there's a million, gazillion of them. Who's leadership
Yeah.
book? But my story, my unique story, with all my shortcomings and the ways that I've overcome them or tried to overcome them
Hmm.
or have failed to overcome them,
Right.
will I hope will resonate on a deeper level and touch people and
Hmm.
let them know that they're capable of greatness no matter what has happened to them, no matter how, what insecurities they still harbor.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, it's just about becoming a whole,
yeah,
right?
that's it.
All those trophies and everything,
Yeah.
you had trials and tribulations getting them.
True. But if I take my body of work in the world,
Hmm.
which is substantial, and as I say, I'm proud, and my body of work of internal
Hmm.
discovery, this was the harder work,
Yeah.
the internal work, and this is the work I'm more proud of.
Right. Right.
More trials and tribulations facing myself honestly than I did in achieving, tremendous successes that garnered me all kinds of, front page cover stories on magazines and
Yeah.
in Forbes and other, well-respected places. Like, yeah, that's all great. I'm not disparaging it.
Yeah.
I'm
No.
proud of it. But I'm much prouder of the more internal work because that was a lot more trial and tribulation. And even though nobody else may know
Hmm.
fully what I went through, I know what I went through. And
Right.
I'm very proud that I not only survived it,
Right.
but I'm thriving
Right.
because of
Yeah. Well, I really look forward to reading that book. I'm sure that it's going to be dynamite, and we'll all have to have a copy to help us guide us through our own crazy world.
it.
Anyway, thank you, Nadine, for being on the show. I so appreciate your time, your energy, and you're a very, very compassionate person that you are. And I give thanks for that
Oh, the
in
feeling is
appreciation.
100% mutual. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. So below this interview, we'll have Nadine's link where you can reach out to her if you want to have her come speak with you or whatever it is that you wish to talk to her about. So I give thank you very much and have a great day, everybody. And we'll talk to you very soon. Thank you. And don't forget to be kind. Just be kind to each other and kindness to yourself first. It's always number one. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.